Back again to the Dark Souls trilogy, and once again I asked y'all to pick which run I should do, and y'all picked Curved Greatswords only. So this is me taking on the Dark Souls trilogy with only using Curved Greatswords. With that said, let's get into the rules for this run. Rule number 1, Curved Greatswords only. Rule number 2, I cannot use magic weapon, lightning blade, dark blade, or any of those types of spells. And this time, no power within or RTSR. I do this to make the run a bit harder. Number 3, resins are allowed because it makes fighting some bosses a bit more interesting. Number 4, no summons as usual. Number 5, no leveling vitality or any HP stats, just to make the run a bit more spicy. Number 6, I must rank each weapon at the end of each run and suffer the wrath of the comment section. And lastly, number 7, beat all bosses. With the rules out of the way, let's get this run started. Starting off, I named my character Brian Shaw after the famous American strongman because I will need all the strength and stamina of a strongman to do this run. For the class, I went with the Thief for the 15 in Dex and the Master Key, letting me get the Black Fire Bombs as my gift so that I could do the Asylum Skip, which I went over in my previous trilogy video. Wave to the Asylum Demon, everyone, it'll be a minute before we see him again. With being Brian Shaw, who is from Colorado, I can use my Mountain Man skills to call a giant bird to my aid to bring me to Firelink Shrine, where I then headed to New Londo Ruins to use the Master Key to be able to go to Blighttown to get my first weapon of the run, the Server. The Server is a dex focused weapon with a beefy strength requirement to one-hand it. The basic R1 attack is a sweeping arc attack, but has a bit of a startup delay to it. The heavy attack is a running forward wide swing into a follow-up backhand attack. The two-handed is about the same in speed and attack motions as the one-handed, besides the heavy attack is a forward charge overhead slam. The dodge roll attack is a spinning attack, and the running attack, which is by far one of the Curved Greatsword's best attacks, is a fast overhead slam. Lastly, the jump attack is a wide sweeping attack. But the unique factor to the Server is that it can heal 7 HP per hit, which if I'm being honest with y'all, I have never noticed until I read about it on the wiki. So you can decide if that is a good perk or not for yourself. Unfortunately, my strength is too low to use the weapon, but fortunately, I can get souls nearby to get my strength to 15, which is just 1 point shy of being able to use it. Luckily though, I can just farm skeletons off a ledge to get that 1 point, allowing me now to two-hand the weapon to kill enemies. With being able to use the sword, I get the gold pine resin, slay some archers, and plunge the Taurus demon. After some plunging is where I noticed the basic attack has a slow startup to it, leading to me wanting to try out the running attack to see if it was faster, and it was. So, seeing that, I just baited out Taurus's jump attack to get running attacks in, to then finish the fight off with a heavy attack to see what I was working with. After this, I made it to the bridge with the red drake and farmed some souls here until I had over 20,000 souls, so that I could buy the crest of Artorias to be able to join the cult of cats. And yes, I'm aware you don't have to farm to do this, but I prefer having the bonfire nearby. The reason for joining the cult is to summon Shiva, who has the Murakumo. You can get this bad boy by killing Shiva, and the easiest way to do that is to kick him off the ledge. Just be careful because after this, his bodyguard will not be too happy about it. The Murakumo has the exact same moveset as the Server, but is just the older and better looking brother of the two. While being in Darkroot Gardens, I earned a decent amount of souls leading fools off a cliff to get my strength to 22, and I make sure to get the wolf ring for extra poise while I'm here. From here, I buy some shards and kill a giant knight for 1 to get my Murakumo to +3, having it strong enough for the gargoyles. The crazy thing that I learned here is how much poise damage these weapons do. With only 2 hits, it would stagger the gargoyles, allowing for an easy 3rd hit. Seeing this, I made sure to pressure the main gargoyle to stagger lock him. But his sibling showed up and scared the living shit out of me, leading me to run and get hit, but I did recover quickly to take out the main gargoyle, and with only 1 left, he went down with no issues. This weapon type is looking really good with his damage output only being at +3. Instead of using my souls for levels, I use them to get the Murakumo to +5 and the Server to +3. Since the Gargs are dead, I can push Golden Boy here off the ledge for the Fat Ring to help with increasing my endurance, weight load, and health. It was then time to head down to the catacombs to do a bit of falling, then run past this Tainite demon to get the Eyes of Death and hop in a coffin to be transported to Gravelord Nito, where I can join his covenant to get the final Curved Greatsword, the Gravelord Sword. The Gravelord Sword is unique in the fact it has crazy base damage but an E in all of its stat scalings. It has the same moveset as the other Curved Greatswords besides its heavy attack. Its R2 is a thrust attack in both one-handed and when two-handing. On top of this, it has 300 poison buildup. So not only does it pack a punch, but it can also poison its enemies. Also, you don't have to fight any bosses to get these 3 weapons, and you can get them in any order as you see fit. I just knew how busted Gravelord's sword is at the start, and you will see why in a few seconds. With having the final swords, I got back down to Blighttown to take on Quelaag. As you can see, the damage is really good, at 196 on a basic attack and 296 on a heavy and running attacks. This might seem low, but it's actually really good for a weapon that is not upgraded and that you can get right at the start of the game, making Quelaag go down rather quickly. Of course, after this I killed her brother so that I can get my strength to 28, but kept going above that to make the first half of the game a bit more challenging since the weapon scales the most with dex, not strength. With some extra souls, I had used them to get the server to +5, but not wanting the Gravelord sword to feel left out, I killed the Tie Knight demon for a demon Tie Knight to get the Gravelord sword to +1. I then used my Mountain Man skills once more to call an old friend back to bring me to the Northern Undead Asylum to fight an asylum demon with his mini army of hollows. His armies did not help him out that much, and the demon was no match for my +5 Murakumo. I then dropped down to the Stray Demon where I used the Gravelord sword. With the sword being imbued with poison, I used that to my advantage to make this fight go by much faster. Once done spreading the Black Plague, I used my strong muscles and the server to delete some thieves from the game. Then karma struck for me abusing my powers and ended up dying to the stupid dogs in the capper fight. I thought having the server in the left hand plus using the wolf ring would make things easier, but I still would get staggered unfortunately. Fortunately, in round 2, I survived the stagger to kill both the dogs, and being a mountain man strongman, I knew I had to fight the demon fair and square. Surprisingly, he was not that bad to dodge his attacks to get hits in, and that poise damage from the server was doing wonders, letting me flex all over this demon bastard. With the capper demon dealt with, I can get the large ember, take a shortcut to the bottom, one-shot a channeler with only a +5 Murakumo, just showing that the Curved Greatswords are the bonk weapon of the Dex world, and take on the Gaping Dragon. I decided for the Gaping Dragon, I wanted to see the damage difference for early game with the 3 weapons. For the Murakumo, a running combo did 560, the server did 507, and the Gravelord sword did a whopping 947. Now, the other 2 are being held back by me not putting points into dex, but let's say I did do 28 in strength and 26 in dex for my current level. That would put the Murakumo at 263 AR, the server at 240, and Gravelord's is still at 333. So no matter what, the Gravelord would be doing the most damage at this point. Speaking of dex though, after this fight I started putting points into it to start doing better damage. Before heading to Iron Golem, I made sure to get large Tie Knight shards along the way so that I can modify my swords to +6. I then went down into Sen's Fortress to kill the Tie Knight demons for 4 demon Tie Knights to get Gravelord sword to +3. Being buffed up, I wrestled with a giant for a Tie Knight chunk and took on an Iron Golem. For Iron Golem, I wanted to see how one-handing attacks pair to two-handed, and one-handed is okay. They do swing a bit faster than two-handed, but not fast enough that I found it worth using over using two-handed. 3 hits from a single-handed attack does 321, whereas 2 swings from a two-handed does 348. So it's just better to just stick with two-handed for attacking. I fly on over to Anor Londo, get my dex to 24, and open the 3 chests with the Demon Tie Knight in the area. Also, I wanted to show off the Gravelord sword just nuking the Silver Knights in 1 backstab, and they say dex isn't also a Unga Bunga playstyle. On the subject of Unga Bungaing, that didn't work out so well with the last Tie Knight demon, but I did learn on their bullshit jump attack if you roll to the right diagonally, you can actually dodge their BS hitbox. Took over 700 hours, but finally figured out how to deal with that one attack besides running away. Now, having 7 demon Tie Knights, I can max out Gravelord sword, and no better test subject to see how strong it is than Ornstein and Smo. I shit you not, it only takes 2 hits to stagger Ornstein. 2. Either all greatswords are busted like this, or curved greatswords are just this busted. Because being able to stun him on top of doing 335 damage is just nuts. When I used thrusting weapons in my last run, I had RTSR on with charcoal resin, and they only did 247 in 1 hit. So 335 is really good. Poor Smo took even more damage with being able to get run attacks off, and even more when I could follow up with a light attack. Probably the easiest ONS has ever been since using sorcery in my init only run. After the fight, I level my dex up to 28, head to New Londo Ruins to start farming chunks, get the very large ember, and with being Brian Shaw, I was able to do this epic double kill. I had to show this off. With that done, I get the Murakumo to plus 15 and the server to plus 14. Of course, being Hercules incarnated, I severed the heads off a Hydra. I then asserted my dominance over 2 other buff dudes and took on the monstrous Nemean lion as I once did in my past life. Come to find out, it only takes 2 hits to stun the giant cat, allowing for a 3rd hit to take off almost half his HP. What the fuck is going on here? I don't remember normal weapons feeling this strong. How about Aquarius? Okay, that seems more reasonable, but the Curved Greatsword can easily stop his buffed up state. If you didn't know, if you stagger Artorias during this, it will stop him from buffing up. Which the Curved Greatsword is great for this, and it's better than most weapons I have used before to do this. It only took 2 hits to get the stagger, where it usually takes 3 or 4 in my past experience. Which has me curious how Ultra Greatswords, Great Hammers, and Great Axes will do. Seeking a bigger challenge, I took on Manus. I used Gold Pine Resin here to help with Manus' large HP pool, and thinking it would give me a better chance to stagger him. But funny enough, never got a stagger. I guess FromSoft realized the staggering with bigger weapons were just too OP in base game and had to reduce it here. With being Brian Shaw, aka Hercules, I thought this would have been an easy no-hit, but then I realized I was the one playing and got smacked right at the end. This is why I don't do no-hit runs. My ability to get hit is unmatched, but it didn't stop me from winning though. Wanting to get the server to plus 15, I sprinted to the chest in Calamit's arena to get the Tynite slab and take the expressway out to upgrade my weapon with Muscle Daddy Andre. Once done getting a pump from Andre, I was ready for Calamite. I got super lucky with Calamite. He kept doing his fire breath attack where he stands up on his hind legs, allowing me to just go ham on his leg like a horny dog, making this my fastest kill on him with only taking about a 1 minute and 30 seconds. At this point, my dex is 40, so I just started working on endurance. I then slaughtered some mushroom people to restock my gold pine resin and slaughtered a poor pup so that I could fight the 4 kings, and with gold pine resin, I of course met the DPS check with no issues. Well, I needed some spice in my life at this point, so the fire stage I can only do jump attacks, and if I do a normal attack I have to start over. Luckily this one only happened once. The jump attack did some decent damage at 599. Personally, I don't understand why jump attacks are in the game most of the time. They never feel useful. Maybe it's meant for PvP, but either way, Fire Sage wasn't too hard to jump on to get the kill. So I then decided for Centipede Demon, I can only do heavy attacks since they are much slower. I went single-handed at the start for the wide swings to make getting hits off easier, and when the Centipede Demon did his slam attack, I switched to two-handed for a strong overhead attack to sever the arm off for the ring. Once I had that ring, I could go roid crazy with the heavy attacks for the win. Bed of Chaos, no extra challenges because fuck this fight. For Seath, I went one-handed to see if I was mistaken about it from the Iron Golem fight, and I have to say I still stand by the fact that two-handing Curved Greatswords is better than just one-handing them. Now Moonlight, I really spiced things up with doing an all hit, and oh boy did it come close. I thought with having armor her attacks wouldn't be too bad, but I came close to dying a few times. Thanks to being Brian Shaw though, I could sustain the attacks long enough for her to finally come down to one-cycle her. For Gwendolyn, I decided to do no rolling, but honestly no rolling for this fight isn't bad. You can just run side to side to dodge everything, and Gwendolyn is so squishy it only took 4 hits to kill her. Alright, time to turn this up to 11 for Priscilla. No armor and no rolling. Come on Priscilla, give me the death that I'm seeking. Ah, yes, there it is. Finally, I had my Kaido death. The trick to winning this way was just running at her side and just attacking non-stop. With dealing so much poise damage, I could knock her visible and just strafe to the left to avoid any of her other attacks, allowing me to swing my massive curved sword with no issues. Alright, that was fun and all, but let's get this run done with. I run on over to the catacombs, slap Pinwheel like the little ant that he is, and get the Mask of the Mother to be transformed into Big Mom. And Nito's pesky skeletons are no match for Big Mom. With this new evolution, I could face take my way to victory. I then level up to 80 and open the doors to the hardest boss in the game. 1 parry, a 2 parry, a 3 parry, and a 1-2 combo for the finish. Talk about a nail biter there, and with that arduous fight done done with. That brings the Dark Souls 1 portion of this run to an end. Total time was 6 hours and 53 minutes with a total death count of 14. One day it'll be in the single digits. One day. Now it's time for the rankings. Coming in last place, and this will be a shock to most of you, but it's the Gravelord Sword. This weapon is a powerhouse early game and just completely outclasses the other two swords, but once you get your dex up and get those weapons to plus 15, they just blow the Gravelord Sword out of the water when it comes to damage. Still a good sword nonetheless. In second place is the Server, and the first place is the Murakumo. The Murakumo just simply out DPSs the Server, putting it ahead of it. Plus, it does aesthetically look better. You can't go wrong with either or, but it's definitely worth pushing Shiva off a cliff to get the Murakumo. Before moving on to Dark Souls 2, if you have been enjoying the video and would like to see more like it, please hit the subscribe button and hype the video. Any support would be greatly appreciated. With that said, let's jump into Dark Souls 2. For Dark Souls 2, I named my character after another American strongman, Robert Oberst, because he looks like someone who would play DS2. For the class, I went with the Warrior for the 15 in strength and 11 in dex. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to get a Curved Greatsword at the start of the game. The Murakumo is locked behind the Birdsmith, Arch Sword, you need the Flexile Sentry Soul, Curved Needle Greatsword is locked behind Ava, and the Curved Dragon Greatsword is locked behind the Ancient Dragon. So I had no other choice but to mod in the Murakumo. Sad part is my stats are not high enough to use it. So, to fix that, I stomped on over to High's Tower to use the secret Curved Greatsword in the game, Gravity. With Dragon Rider dead, I can use his souls to get my strength and dex to 20 to be able to use the Murakumo. The Murakumo returns once again with a focus in dex scaling. It has the same light attacks as DS1, but is a bit faster. The heavy attack on the other hand feels a tad slower than DS1. The two-handed is the same as before, but now has a unique skill of parrying. The player swings the sword to the side, knocking enemies' attack back, allowing for a riposte. The rolling attack is different this time, with a single hand rolling being an overhead slam, but its two-handed roll is the normal spin attack. That's enough weapon talk, let's see how this bad boy does against a boss. Well, hot damn, 204 and 205 without being upgraded or using any residentism, decent damage early on. The nice thing about the Curved Greatsword is that even though it's a heavy hitter, the speed of swinging the sword twice feels very doable for slower bosses. Most bigger weapons struggle with getting more than one hit out, but this seems to not be the issue for the Curved Greatswords yet. After the fight, I buffed my Murakumo to +3, pick up some magic ooze, dash over to No Man's Wharf, and take on the Flexile Sentry. Here, I thought I was going to sweep the floor with the conjoined twins, but I ended up fumbling pretty hard. For the life of me, I couldn't avoid any of their attacks. I thought for a brief moment I was going to pull it around, but the boss had other plans for me. I forgot for a moment that the Curved Greatsword is the bonking weapon of the Dex world, and I should use it as such. So I went full Unga Booga on the Flexile Sentry, and with my raw strength and my dexterity good looks, I was able to get my revenge with a no-hit, rewarding me with the Flexile Sentry Soul, which will be a second before I can use it. Instead, I hit up the merchant to buy a branch of yore so that I can go to the Shaded Woods to get the Calanthe Ring +1 to help with stamina regain, and the second Dragon Ring for some more HP and stamina. While in the Shaded Woods, I opened the chest with a Titanite chunk and a Petrified Dragon Bone to help out later with some weapon upgrades. With having all that, I was ready to move on to the Pursuer. For the Pursuer, I wanted to see how the one-handed felt in comparison to the two-handed, and I have to say the one-handed actually feels a good bit faster in DS2 than it did in DS1. It even feels fast enough that it could deal more damage one-handed than two-handed, but with how easy it is to get hits on the Pursuer after it does its 3 combo swing, I didn't struggle using the two-handed to get major damage off, making for a chill victory. Of course, being an American strongman, I have no issues summoning a giant bald eagle that had its head dyed brown to bring me to the Lost Bastille, where I hit up the local supplement store to pick up some protein powder and creatine so that I can get my Murakumo to +7. I then go back to No Man's Wharf to get a Frager branch of yore and the Ozempic ring to help with my weight management. Also, another plus of the Curved Greatsword's one-handed speed is its length. It's great for taking on multiple enemies, and speaking of multiple enemies, it's time for multiple bosses. For these Sentinels, I made sure to use the Gold Pine Resonance for some big number damage, and as you can see, the one-handed speed is doing a really good job here, and with it not taking up so much stamina, I could even have enough time to get out of the way. Now, this doesn't mean it didn't get spicy messy from time to time with me getting taken advantage of from behind, but with being a strong man with buns of steel, it was merely a flesh wound and I made sure to return the favor back tenfold. After this, I speak with a talking cat to get the cat ring. I use my leftover souls to get my dex to 40 and strength to 23. With the sentinels taken care of, I can meet up with the masked man to trade in the flexile souls for the arc sword. The arc sword is the exact same as the Murakumo and its moveset, but differs in scaling with a C in strength and a B in dex. With the arc sword being a boss weapon, it will need petrified dragon bone, so I kill a dragon outside Ornstein's boss room for 1. While being next to Ornstein, I absolutely crushed him with my +7 Murakumo. I then stripped down into my consoles to reduce my weight to fall down the well to make it to the Black Gulch, where I picked a fight with 2 giants to show them what real strength looks like and for me to open a chest down here to get another petrified dragon bone. Shocker to none, I took on the Ronin while I was here. The real shocker though was me about to win the fight and dropping the ball. Well, if you're new to the channel, it's a shocker. If not new, then you were expecting it. Sadly, I have a track record for that. Round 2 with the Ronin was better. I tried to focus on cutting off his arms, which I was successful with his left arm, not so successful with his right arm with the butcher knife. But even with him spamming his magic slam attack, he was no match for my dex Unga Bunga powers. Feeling like the Murakumo is getting a bit too much love, I upgraded my arc sword to +2. I then used the rest of my rotten souls to get my ADB up to 16, because apparently I need those iframes. With the Gulch bonfire unlocked, I farmed the leeches to get Titanite chunks. I then went back to the Forest of the Lost Giants and used a Pharaoh Stone to get a Titanite slab, so that I could show even more favoritism to the Murakumo and get it to +10. Wanting to feel stronger than I already was, I went refight the Ronin again to roid myself up some more, to get my ADB to 20, strength to 40, and endurance to 14. I then free Birdsmith for later use and take on Nachika. Oh, dear viewer, did you know Nachika has a grab attack? I sure didn't, because I've never been grabbed by it before. Fun part about getting grabbed by her is getting toxic and dying. You know what's even better? Getting grabbed - poked again. In all fairness, I deserve it after that last run. I will say, if I was using the Murakumo here, this fight would have been over with on round 1. It's not to say that the arc sword is bad, it actually will out DPS the Murakumo once it gets to +5, but with it needing petrified dragon bone to upgrade it, it just takes much longer before you can make it strong. Which is why Nachika was a bit harder than normal, but Arc Sword did really well against the Congregation and Prowling Mages. With the Curved Greatswords one-handed attacks doing wide horizontal swings, it made for an easy time dispatching the Horde, and with the heavy attack being an overhead slam, it made the ground guys a walk in the park to hit. The Arc Sword must have heard me talking shit about its damage output and decided to one-shot the Prowling Mages with a backstab, which I have to say the backstab animation was very satisfying. After the fight, I killed a Crystal Lizard for another petrified dragon bone, and once again I was backstabbed by Gravity. Gravity is a fickle mistress, you never know how it'll go. Right after my rendition of a stormtrooper falling in a Sarlacc pit, I took on a Spider Mommy and was very surprised that I did not cut off one of her heads with the arc sword. I figured the damage would be high enough for it, but it never happened. Either way, easy fight with hyper beam baiting. I start working on my vitality to increase my weight management, my defense, and for me to be able to power stance without heavy rolling. I returned to my cat master to buy some alluring skulls to take on the skeleton lords. I decided to test out single-handed attack switching between the two weapons, and it felt like good coverage because with the weapon arcing at an angle, it can lead to misses depending on your position when just using one. Probably the best use of single-handed attacks is crowd control. With being able to cover both sides with large sweeping weapons, you can take out the skeleton lord's army with no issues, which means when traversing around the world dealing with trash mobs wouldn't be a problem. Combine this with alluring skulls to lure the army into one spot, and you can make this hectic fight into a nice slaughter fest. After this fight, I realized I missed a dragon bone at Brightstone Cove, so I could have had a +3 arc sword, and what better punching bag to test it out on than the covetous demon. My god, that power stancing damage. Curved Greatswords are literally the secret love child of strength index users, and I'm here for it. Let's see how it does against Mytha. Single-handed seems pretty good for getting quick hits in, but the power stancing attack just does godly damage. This is probably the first time I have found power stancing better than just normal two-handing. The damage is just actually justifiable for using it this way. I still think in the long haul, two-handing will be the safer option for not getting hit, but if you go full Oonga Boonga tank style with this, you could just wreck house hard. On top of this, the Curved Greatsword is really good at dealing with red phantoms. With its long range and high poise damage, it just wasn't a problem at all to deal with them. Hell, even dealing with the Alone Knights was a cakewalk with one-shotting them, and their elite versions only taking 2 hits to kill. Surprisingly though, Smelter Demon didn't take as much damage as I thought he would, but I did take this chance to try out the heavy attack for power stancing, which is also an overhead slam. It did okay damage for PvE use, most likely better for PvP, but it got the job done. I was also feeling very generous with the old Iron King that I let him kill me. Definitely didn't fuck up. No siree, I would never do that. On that first round, I was focusing on power stancing, so for round 2, I switched back to normal two-handing, and it did out DPS the power stancing when getting consecutive hits in a row. I still think power stancing is good for this weapon, way better than the majority of the other ones I have used for it, so I'm not giving up on it just yet. With only one major Lord Soul left, I run over to Sinner's Rise to pick a fight with the Lost Sinner. The Lost Sinner is a bit tricky with this weapon since she doesn't really sit still that long after attacks, and the Murakumo and Arc Soul's roll attack is a slam when one-handed, which doesn't have the best speed to get consistent hits. So I did my best to try and wait to get a normal light attack in after a roll. Fortunately, I had a good supply of life gems to keep me in the game to get the win, which now gives me access to Dragonlake Castle where I bully some twin riders to death. Fight the Looking Glass Knight, whom I could run around majority of the time to get hits in. He did get his minion out, which I thought I would have been fast enough to beat him before that, but with just using the Curved Greatswords, I didn't have any problem killing his summon, allowing me to get back into the fight and finish it off with a nice ballerina twirl, which makes me think I should have named my character Eddie Hall because he has worn some ballerina clothing before. With Looking Glass Knight down for the count, that means Shrine of Amana is open for plundering, but first I go to Elium Lois because I got me another giant pussycat to kill. Joke's on me though because I ended up dying to the pussy, one of the better ways to go out in life. Round 2, I decided I wasn't playing around anymore and used a Bright Bug and Gold Pine Resin for the big boy damage. I also aimed to no-hit Ava from behind because she or he, no clue what gender the cat is, takes more damage when hitting its bum, which is very accurate to real life, so if you ever come across a giant massive ice tiger, just try finger butthole and you should be fine. With Ava taken care of, I can unfreeze everything so I can kill the ice golems to get the Curved Nail Greatsword, which needs Twinkling Titanite to upgrade, bringing us back to the Shrine of Amana to farm them, so that I can get the weapon to +5. The Nil Sword is similar to the previous 2 curved swords, but with a focus on strength scaling more than dex. The difference for this weapon is that the two-handed heavy is a spin attack, and it trades in the parry for a wind-up swing. Time to see what the Nil can do in combat. The unique heavy attack that is a spin doesn't do that great of damage. I have used spear weapons that have better damage outputs with their spin attacks. You're just better off using the light attacks instead. I did try out its L2 attack, which is the slow wind-up swing, which does even less damage than the basic R1 attack. Not too sure what the purpose of its L2 attack is meant for besides possibly pushing back enemies or invaders. Once again, I just stick with the basic attack for the big damage. I use the Nil again for Velstadt, and the damage is fine for what it is, but not what I was expecting from a DLC weapon. Fortunately, it will get stronger later on this run. After Velstadt, I get my strength index to 50 and vitality to 21. I then head to Aldia's Keep, where once again I get to see how good Curved Greatswords are at dealing with human enemies. While here, I get more petrified dragon bones. I then slay a baby dragon, make it to the dragon shrine, have a strongman contest with some giant knights, and fight a daddy dragon. The unique thing about power stancing the Curved Nail Greatsword is that it changes the power stancing heavy attack into a spin attack with the 2 swords, which is just fucking cool looking, but sadly the damage output does not match its cool factor. Honestly, I think it did more damage to the weapon itself than it did to the actual boss, which forced me to go back to single strikes to finish the fight without my weapon breaking. With the Ancient Dragon dead, I can enter the dragon's memories and get the Ancient Dragon Soul, which I can trade in for my favorite Curved Greatsword in the game, the Curved Dragon Greatsword. The Curved Dragon Greatsword has a C scaling in strength and an S scaling in dex. This monster shares most of the same moves, but has the most unique attack. Its heavy attack shoots out a stream of air that goes out in a V shape, making it have the best crowd control skill out of all the Curved Greatswords. With obtaining the last last weapon, I go back to the Dragon Shrine area and farm up the Petrified Dragon Bones to get both of my boss weapons to +5. The Curved Dragon Greatsword has the highest AR at 593, the Nil has 499, the Arc Sword has 513, and the Murakumo has the lowest with 494. Now let's see what the highest AR weapon can do to the Giant Lord. 566 and 524 seem to be the two damage numbers I get per hit, putting me dealing over 1000 damage in 2 swings and over 1500 damage in 3 swings. That's absurd damage without a bright bug or any buffs applied. On top of this weapon doing absurd damage, making the Giant Lord feel like an ant, it has the most badass designed weapon in the entire game. Maybe not the entire game, but to me it feels that way. Once done admiring this majestic weapon, I get the remaining Giant Soul to take on Vendrick. You know, guys, scripting can be really hard sometimes, but it's like an art. It just takes time to perfect it, and then King Vendrick puts his balls on my face. That one is for the big green man out there. After using Vendrick's testicles as a pendulum, I noticed that the Nil sword had really good infusion rates, so I decided to infuse it with lightning to see how much damage I can get out of it, but first I had to use the Curved Dragon Sword's special heavy attack for the most cathartic feeling ever in the Royal Rat Vanguard fight. The air blast goes through the stone, so you can actually just annihilate a horde of the rats in one swing. One of the most satisfying feelings I have ever had in this entire game. Too bad it was ruined in the Royal Rat Authority fight. The stupid rat dogs wouldn't get hit by the blast, leaving me open to get toxic. The worst part was finding out alluring skulls don't work on the rat dogs, because why not have a good game design to deal with the trash mobs? It's much better to make it tedious and not fun for the player, isn't it? I was finally able to pull it off on my 4th attempt to take the bitterness out of my mouth. I also remembered the Dragon Sword can be buffed, and my lord, dealing over 600 damage per hit feels so wrong, but also feels so right. I can imagine the people commenting right now being, dude, this is just how normal weapons are, and my retort to that is I don't know what it feels like to use normal weapons, so let me have my fun with it. Speaking of fun, I was dealing over 600 damage to the horse without any buffs. I don't think I was meant to fight him with this strong of a weapon, but I do prefer it. Wanting to finally test the lightning infusion, I kill a Rotten to level my faith up and see how the lightning Nil does against some DLC bosses. Damage is much better at this point thanks to the weapon having an S in faith, a B in strength, and a C in dex. With having 3 decent stat scalings, I could take off half of Elena's health before she can even finish her summons. With dealing so much damage, I played more aggressively than I normally do to lower her health faster and kill her before she could even get a chance to summon again. I wasn't done yet with the Nil. After this, I took on Sin, where I finally realized hitting his head does more damage. I was always told to go for his chest, but hitting his head did more damage than his chest, and with baiting out his fire breath attack, I had an easy time smacking his head dash neck, leading to a quick win. The Nil was doing great, but for Fume Knight, Sirloin, and Blue Smelter Demon, I had to go back to the Dragon Sword. The damage was still better, especially with using resins with it. Funny thing is, in all 3 of those fights, I nearly dropped the ball, but was able to pull through on every one to get the win. For the twins, I of course had to bring back the OG duo, Murakumo and the Arc Sword. The power stancing damage with these 2 bad boys was too good to pass up, plus they weigh less than the other 2. So I wasn't fat rolling in the fights, and learning my lesson from Ava, I made sure to use the good old Kakashi trick to finger and butthole for the win. After this fight, I went back to the Dragon Sword because for the Ivory King's army, I needed to use magic ooze to make quick work of them, and after that, I switched to gold pine resin for the king. The poor bastard thought he had it rough with the ice rapier last round, but the Curved Dragon Greatsword reminded him to fear the bonk and the bonk's air slam. My curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to see what lightning infusion would be like with the Dragon Sword, and I was not disappointed with an AR of 688. With this much damage, it made the 3 douches fight go by reasonably fast, and the best part was annihilating the Havel clone with a well-timed backstab to take off half of his HP, killing him in the process, which just leaves Dark Lurker, and with mainly dealing physical damage, I was doing good numbers to the ghostly bastard, especially when his twin was coming out. Poor thing would have needed 4 of himself to stand a chance against the Curved Dragon Greatsword. With that done, I got my level to 204 and took on the last bosses, where I disgraced myself by dying to the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender. My hubris always catches up to me in the end, but I came back with Roid Rage, and there was no way the Tweedledee and Tweedledum could stop me. Nasandra couldn't handle the power of double the the trouble, nor could Aldia, bringing the DS2 portion of this run to an end. The total runtime was 12 hours and the total death count was 32. Now for the rankings. Coming in last place is the Murakumo, a good starting weapon for the class, but ended up falling off in the later half. In third place is the Arc Sword, a stronger version of the Murakumo essentially. And second place is the Curved Greatsword. I came close to putting the sword in third since without infusion the Arc Sword is better, but with the weapon having such good scaling with infusion, it just puts it ahead of the Arc Sword. Which brings us to the first place winner, the Curved Dragon Greatsword. This bad boy has it all. Big damage, can be infused, be buffed, and has a range option that is also a good crowd control tool. None of the other swords come close to this one, and honestly might be my new favorite weapon in the entire game. Plus it gets brownie points for looking so cool. With the rankings done with, we can move on to the final portion of the run, Dark Souls 3. Starting with the class, I go with the Mercenary for this 16 in dex. I then transform my character into a balding muscular man and name my character Eddie Hall because DS3 is the beast of the Dark Souls trilogy. Now sadly, like DS2, there's no way to get a Curved Greatsword without killing a few bosses, so I had to mod in the first sword I could get, which is the Exile Greatsword. The Exile Greatsword focuses on strength scaling over dex, but does really well with a refined gem setup. The moveset from DS1 makes a return, but the single-handed heavy attack is no longer a run-up wine swing, instead it's a slower but harder hitting horizontal attack. It has the weapon art Spin Slash, which does a small spin, but if you do a heavy attack during it, it will extend the spin attack. Tragically, I cannot use the weapon because my strength does not meet the two-handed requirements, but fortunately DS3 isn't like DS1. In DS1, weapons will bounce off if you don't meet the stat requirements, but here in DS3 you just do reduced damage, which in all honesty 25 damage isn't that bad at all. And with the Curved Greatsword dealing good poise damage, I could get staggers off, letting me deal 36 damage. You might be thinking it would make the fight with Gundyr harder, but this is actually easier than using bare fist, so I didn't have any issues taking out the big lug. I then do the usual gathering, head to High Wall of Locktrick, pick up some steroids, some protein shards, and give an old lady a private 1v1 workout session. I then use those souls to get my strength to 16 so that I can be able to two-hand the Exile Greatsword to kill some oversized slugs from my protein shards, to get the sword to +2 and take on the second strongest man of these lands, Vort. Normally I would use Gold Pine Resin here, but with my weapon being +2 and it already doing good damage, I had no need to waste the resin on this lord of a strong man, especially with me staggering Vort after every 5th strike, and oh boy, when I head broke him during his Ice Breath attack with a follow-up riposte, I literally bonked the lights out of him. Feeling like I need some more mass to my frame, I make friends with a secret drug dealer for future use. I then pick up some charcoal resin, kill a lizard for a sharp gem, get the Fire Clutch ring, nearly break my legs falling off a cliff for some protein shards, and made it to the Road of Sacrifice where you can obtain the Exile Greatsword by tricking some bodybuilders pretending to be strongmen fall off a ledge. So you can actually get this weapon very early on in the run, which is a bit nuts, but you'll find out why later. I then kill a lizard for some Twinkling Creatine, join the Watchdogs of Farron, and give the Wolf Cult 10 Wolf's Blood Sword Grass to get the Old Wolf Curved Sword. The Old Wolf Curved Sword is more balanced in scaling with having a C in strength and dex, but has the downside of not being buffable or infusible. To make up for this, the weapon has a special perk similar to Pontiff's Right Eye, where it will increase damage for every consecutive hit, starting at 5%, going all the way to 10%. It also has the unique weapon art, Wolf Leap, which seems similar to Spin Slash, but when pressing the heavy attack during it, it will launch the player back, giving them the option to retreat or to attack again. Before using the sword, I throw around a few demon rocks for an upcoming strongman competition, kill some more lizards for shards, get my dex to 25 and strength to 19, buy a prism stone to trade with the birds for Twinkling Creatine, and kill a lizard atop a Firelink Shrine for another, allow me to get the Old Wolf Curved Sword to +2. I then test out my new toy on a demon, and the 5 to 10% damage increase is feeling super nice. And while testing, an old onion friend came to visit. Nazdravie everyone, hope your day is going well. Once done cheering, I get the Chloranther Ring for faster stamina regain because that will be very important when using a heavy weapon, and while next to the Curse Rod of Greatwood, I figured I would go take him out. I decided to go back to my Exile Greatsword since it was +4 at the time, and it did so much damage it instantly popped any of the leg zits besides the stomach. That one took a few more hits. Then in phase 2, I add charcoal resin with the fire clutch ring, and you got yourself a recipe for an easy win. After that fight, I take on the Red-Eye Knight outside Dancer's boss room to kill it for a refined gem, but got lucky and got 2 out of it instead of 1. I went pick up the Fair and Coal and use it so that I can refine my Exile sword since it scales the best with this gem instead of a heavy gem. Except this was a ruse, dear viewer, because I used the old wolf curved sword instead of the Exile sword for the fight with the Crystal Sage. It's only fair that it gets turns slaying bosses. Now, I did fear that the wolf sword wouldn't do that well even with its damage increase per consecutive hits since it can't be buffed, but it actually surprised me with how well it did only at +2. I even found using the weapon art Wolf Leap helped get a 3rd hit in with the amount of stamina I had, making this a pretty quick victory. Of course, after the fight, I had to get all the lizards in the area that had Twinkling Creatine to help out my wolf sword to +3. I then used some of my leftover souls to buy Alluring Skulls and the Lloyd Shield Ring. After this, I got the Lloyd Sword Ring and killed 2 giants for their large Titanite shards. Feeling tough, I went straight to the Deacons to the Deep before restocking up on heals. I knew with single-handing the sword, I could hit multiple targets at once to lay waste to the undead army, and with the main Deacon coming out, I can use the skull to distract the horde, so I could slaughter the big piggies and then focus on the skinny bastard. It's always the large ones that give me the most trouble, so it was nice for a change to be able to kill them and just focus on the main Deacon afterwards. With the Deacon dead, I get my strength to 33 and figured it was time to hit up my drug dealer who taught me the ways of being a billionaire who takes the blood of his children to make himself live forever. Seriously, I don't understand why people watch that guy, but I guess some people just like watching a father suck his son dry. On a more positive note, it's time for the Abyss Watchers, and of course I made sure to use the Wolf Sword against them. I finally got a backstab off the first attack. It's about bloody time, and I could follow up with an extra hit that put the boss at half health. Also found the first phase has a lot more openings to walk around the Watchers' attacks to get backstabs in. Speaking of backstabbing, I ended up killing Red Eyes along with the main Watcher while the 2 of them were fighting. Phase 2, I found you could actually get behind the Watcher after he does his jump slam attack to get another backstab. Dude has a shit ton of openings to get backstabs in, which made this second half go by very quick. With the Watchers out of the picture, I get another sharp gem and prepare myself to slaughter a good chunk of these skeletons with the Carthus Curved Greatsword. But before that, I figured I would slap Wolney around for a bit of money and then kill Pontiff's dog for the right eye of Pontiff. Once done doing that, I farmed the skeletons for a 3% drop chance for the sword. The Carthus Curved Greatsword has very good scaling with dex and deals 30 bleed buildup per hit, but besides that, it shares the same moveset as the Exile Greatsword. Except Mr. Old Demon King here is immune to bleed, so I went with the Old Wolf Curved Sword combined with the Pontiff's right eye. So if I reach the max buff of the sword and ring, that gives me a damage increase of 21%. I made sure to go one-handed here to reach the max damage increase, and as you can see, it made quick work of lowering Old Demon King's health bar. I was even able to kill him before he could even get a chance to explode. I then sell some of my worldly possessions to buy more drugs, to afford the cost of infusing my Carthus sword with a sharp gem, since it scales best with that gem instead of refine. I then gather up all the large shards that I can and backstab Alvia, who drops the Murakumo. The Murakumo mainly scales with dex but has the same moveset as the Exile sword. The only difference is that the Murakumo has the second largest range out of all the great curved swords. I go back to gathering more chunks by killing a lizard and killing more lizards for Twinkling Titanite, so that I can get the Carthus sword to +7. After this, I get the Dark Clutch ring for my match with Dancer. The cool thing about the Carthus sword is that it can deal bleed damage, but can also be buffed by other elements, which I thought would be the smartest move against Dancer since she is weak to dark damage and can be bled. But I got a bit too adventurous and played more aggressively than I normally do against her, leading me to die twice. But the good thing that came out of this was finding out just going Pontiff's right eye with Carthus Rouge was the better damage output. In general, I found using Pontiff's right eye was better than going with the clutch rings. It just consistently helped out with more damage. With Dancer dead, I gather up the chunks in Twinkling Titanite in Lockrick Castle. A quick tip for getting the chest with Twinkling Titanite guarded by the Outrider Knight: you can just lead him up the stairs and bring him behind it. By doing this, he'll usually get stuck long enough for you to loot all the chests down below. I then used the souls I gathered to get my strength to 40 and vitality to 12. After that, I upgraded my wolf sword to +4 and Exile sword to +9. Wanting some more large Titanite shards, I faced Pontiff, where I went barehanded to parry his first attack to then switch to my XL sword for the riposte, taking off half of his HP bar. I then follow up with some light attacks to lower it some more and back off for him to enter phase 2 while I buff up my sword. With his HP so low, he'll go for his summon if I stay back, which he does, letting me finish him off in a few swings. With Pontiff dead, I get the Eastern Ashes, letting me get my Murakumo to +6, and while I was at it, I infuse it through the Refined Gem since it gives it the highest AR. I then restock up on Gold Pine Resin and Green Blossoms to face Daddy Dragon number 2, Osiris, which was practically a massacre since I could just stun Osiris with a few hits with an Electrify XL sword. I also forgot to mention I've been using Green Blossoms for extra stamina regain. With these weapons being a great sword and all, they kind of use up a lot of stamina, so it's best to have fast stamina regain to either recover fast for dodges or to get more swings in. Another quick note for the XL sword, make sure you aim it properly. It does have a shorter range than the other swords, which can lead to whiffs more often than not, but not enough of a downside to make me lose this fight. I then meditate like all strongmen do, because just like our balls of steel, we need our minds to be a fraction of that strength, so that we can slay ancient wyverns with a single swing of our swords. After slaying, I get the Dragon Chaser's Ashes and a Titanite Slab for me to get the XL sword to +10 and my other swords to +9. After neglecting my poor Murakumo, it was time to use it against Aldrich, where I had an amazing start. I finally got an opening where this bastard doesn't spam his ball attack and I fumble it. Typical Arcane move right there. So in round 1 I went single-handed thinking this would be better for damage output, but come to find out in round 2, two-handing was actually better. I thought with single-handing I could out DPS with the amount of swings I could get in, but come to find out two-handing is just way more efficient. Moving on to Yorm, I stayed with the Murakumo, which I thought was the smartest choice since its long range should help with hitting Yorm's arm or head, but because the weapon is actually so long, it ended up hitting Yorm's leg most of the time, so I had to be more precise when aiming it than you would with a smaller weapon. Come to find out, being longer isn't always better. Isn't that right, Yorm? With those 2 wins, I get my Vitality to 20 and Endurance to 13. With base game almost done with, I figured good old Champion Gundyr was next. I went Karthus Sword with Karthus Rouge for the bleed build. Sadly, the Curved Greatswords are not that fast of a weapon, even when single-handing them. Most of the openings I could hit Gundyr on, I found he was able to hit me right back because I didn't recover in time to be able to roll out of the way. Gundyr is a pretty hard counter to slow weapons, but in round 2 I decided to be more aggressive to get more bleeds in and a stun off. So with Gundyr only having a smidge of health left, it didn't really matter if I traded blows with him or not. Remember, when playing a bonk style, you gotta stay aggressive to win, unless it's Gale, Midir, or Soul of Cinder. Those guys are a whole different story. Wanting another slab, I go take on the Nameless King. The chicken never stood a chance against the XL sword. For the king himself, he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be. Part of me thought he was going to be like Gundyr, but he's actually a little bit slower than him, so it was very comfortable to get hits in after he attacks. I did make 2 mistakes though. The first was not using our charcoal bundle when I got the riposte, and turning around too soon and getting struck by a lightning. But thanks to my mind and balls of steel, I was able to somehow survive with 1 HP to stay in the fight. They don't call Eddie Hall the Beast for no reason. Fueled by rage and animalistic instincts, I was able to become the king of the beast, letting me get a Titanite Slab and upgrade my Wolf Sword to +10, bringing us to the Dragon Slayer armor fight, and I'll let this one speak for itself. I keep telling y'all, no lock-on makes this fight a breeze, but it also just shows how clean this boss actually is with his hitboxes. It's just a shame FromSoft doesn't do this with all their bosses. With Dragon Slayer out of the way, I can get 2 more slabs to get my Karthus and Murakumo sword to +10. Bringing us to the final base game boss besides the final boss, the Twin Princes, where I had a rough start, but thought I could save it, but alas I could not. Round 2 though, I could safely start the fight without getting jumped from behind. I went Murakumo here, hoping its long range could help with getting consistent hits in. Also, I found it a bit BS that the stagger opening is so short. I literally just stunned the bastard, walked 2 steps, and he recovered. Like, give me a chance, damn it. Luckily, with my raw power, I didn't need it. Also, did anyone else know if you kill the elder brother behind where the twin spawns in phase 2, they will just sit there doing nothing? There has to be a cheese around this or something. But once you get in range, they start to move. Another reason for the Murakumo's range was trying to get hits on the younger brother sibling when attacking from the side, which did okay. It wasn't always consistent, but consistent enough to get me the second try. With all the lords dead, I can place their heads to start making my way to Earthern Peaks to get the last weapon in this run, the Herald Curved Greatsword. The Herald Curved Greatsword has a C in both strength and dex, and pretty much has the same moveset as the other Curved Greatswords, but its weapon art Sever is what separates it from the rest. Sever lets the user repeatedly slam the weapon down in close range. Very good for stun locking human enemies, and to add to this, it's the longest Curved Greatsword in the game. I make sure to get the weapon fully upgraded and infuse it with the refined gem, having it ready for Grave Tender. As I was mentioning a second ago, this sword has the longest range out of its group, making it very safe to get hits on human enemies, and Sever does a fantastic job of stunning Grave Tender in one place for me to kill him. For his giant pet though, all I had to do was land a few hits to break the wolf's stance for a riposte, and it was lights out for the wolfo. With Herald doing so well against human types, I figured Frida wouldn't be an issue. Well, fuck me then. It's fine. It's not like it can happen twice in a row. My own skill issue even impresses me at times. Fortunately, I got my shit together for round 3. The first phase was so fast I forgot to even use Sever, and for phase 2 I decided to play a bit smart, even though this is a Dex Unga Bunga build. I used Rotten Resin to get a poison off on Father for tick damage. I didn't have to do this since the Herald was doing such good damage, but it sped up the fight. Phase 3, Frida was very generous with her jump attacks for backstabs, but in all honesty, you don't really need to do that to win this fight, since the weapon type is really good at stun locking her with its basic attack. Sadly, I forgot again to use Sever in phase 3. I just got tunnel vision on winning that I forgot all about it, but it will return shortly. Up next was Demon Prince, which should have been an easy first try with the Carthus Sword and Carthus Rouge, but I ended up taking the Demon Prince's wrinkly ball face to my face. Round 2 was better with me getting quick poise breaks on thing 1 and thing 2 for quick kills, and in phase 2 I just had to avoid getting teabagged again, because with bleed procs and Carthus Curved Greatsword damage outputs, I could just slap the ball sack face away while it bleeds to death for my second try victory. If only mid-tier was that nice. The stupid dragon killed me 3 times. The damn thing's pinky toe touches me after a roll and just nukes my health bar. I don't even think the Demon Prince's saggy ass face would have done that. I went with the Herald here for its long range. When having to hit mid-tier's head, the best thing to have is a long stick. Also, never get greedy with his head breaks. I could have won on my 3rd attempt, but got carried away with the extra damage and died shortly after that. Learning that lesson though, on attempt 4 I did the riposte and killed the dragon. Was a bit shocked it took as long as it did to get the riposte. I honestly thought I would get 2 with this weapon, but maybe I just need a bigger stick. Continuing on in the DLC rush is Half-Light, where Herald did a fabulous job of stunning the healers. All I had to do was use Sever to keep them in one spot to take them out. For Half-Light himself, I tried Sever a few times and it nearly put me at risk of dying, so I bailed on that idea and just waited for his bow attacks to get hits in, and then just let him come to me for the finish. Which Gale took revenge for Half-Light, not because he was a skilled warrior. No, it was because my beast blood got the better of me and I thought I could pressure Gale, but ended up taking his load to the face. No strong man alive could handle Gale's load. So I'm not shocked I died here. Learning to play passive against my wishes, I was able to dance with Gale and get some stun breaks every now and then, but the extra damage didn't feel that great. I honestly think we should have been able to riposte Gale, but that's just my opinion. Either way, Gale and I danced for some time until I was the last one dancing. I level up for the last time to 97 and take on the asshole gym owner that is the Lord of Cinder. And you know what? For old time's sake, I'll show off the final fight. Enjoy. Took 4 tries, but that's better than being in the double digits, and with that brings the run to an end. Total runtime was 8 hours and 13 minutes with a total death count of 31. Not too shabby if I do say so myself, but let's get into the rankings. Coming in last place is the Murakumo. It's not that it's a bad weapon, but the other weapons just slightly out DPS it. In 4th place is the Old Wolf Curved Sword. If this weapon could be buffed, it would be so much higher, but sadly it being unbuffable and unfusable just lowers its DPS potential. Even though it can increase its damage by 10%, the rest of the other weapons can still outmatch it. In 3rd place is the Karthus Curved Greatsword. A heavy hitter and a bleed machine just does wonders for melting HP bars. Tragically, not every boss is susceptible to bleed. Bringing us to the 2nd place, which is the Herald. A fantastic weapon for dealing with those pesky human bosses, but also a great weapon in general. Good damage, good range, good versatility. It's a shock it isn't number 1, but the winner for that slot is the Exile Greatsword. This bad boy just trumps the others in damage, and you get it stupid early in the game with no effort. It's a no-brainer for the number 1 spot. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. At this time, I would also like to thank my channel supporters. If you too would like to support the channel or have your name in the video, you can click the Patreon link in the description or click the YouTube join button. I also from time to time stream my runs, so you can catch me streaming on YouTube or over on Twitch at Akane Gaming. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.